Garrison Price for Friday, April 25th, 2025. Coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the Historic Wall Center. In this program, a presentation of Bet365. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things with intern Jaden Taja. We have a big show planned for you after a gigantic evening in Vancouver sports. But we start with the Vancouver Canucks before we get to the Whitecaps, and boy, what a evening for the club. We start with the Vancouver Canucks because, well, on Monday when Jim Rutherford took to the dais at Rogers Arena for his end-of-season press conference, he said, in a bout of candor, although the whole thing was pretty Coach is going to have a decision to make and suspect to hear something by the end of the week. Well, we're at the end of the work week, so we know the NHL, no days off.
And this is why the lack of filter on Monday was notable for me. Was great that they were honest at times, but when you're that honest, when you have no filter on, you realize you're actually putting yourself behind the eight ball. They put a timeline on this that, Matt, they really didn't need to put on. And now everybody's looking at their watch.
No, but by the same token, I think it stood to reason that you needed a response on this pretty quickly. That
sure,
you need to know who you're going forward with your head coach, because, of course, you've got to conduct a search if Rick Tocchet doesn't.
But if it wasn't announced till May 10th, I don't think anybody would have gone crazy.
As we sit here this morning, as at the time that we're recording all this, Rick Tocchet is still mulling. Or, at the very least, no news is out yet on his future with the Vancouver Canucks. We're asking you on the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question, if you were Rick Tocchet, would you want to coach the Canucks next season? We've been sitting here talking all week long, talking to our guests about put yourself in Tocchet's skates. How attractive is this job, especially vis-a-vis other openings in the National Hockey League? And we are told, reportedly, that the Philadelphia Flyers would have interest in bringing back a legendary player from their past and putting Tocchet behind the bench. There are other openings around the NHL as well, right? Chicago.
Of which he would be a candidate for sure. So you can't say, I would coach for $3 million a year. Of course I would come back and do it. Well, he can do that elsewhere, though. So that's not exclusive to Vancouver.
Right. Chicago, Boston, the New York Rangers, Seattle, Anaheim.
Yeah.
Also looking for head coaches. I voted no on this poll, Blake, and the more I have thought about it from Tocchet's shoes, the more and more I'm having trouble not seeing the grass greener elsewhere. Think about it. You come back, if you're Rick Tocchet, first of all, you're probably the scapegoat if things go poorly next year, right? It's easier to fire a coach than it is to turn over players. NHL coaches now have ridiculously short shelf lives. More on that with Jeff Patterson coming up. But, that Tocchet's been on the job 2.5 years and is amongst the 10 most tenured coaches in the end. Like, it's crazy town now.
Yeah. How
quickly we're disposing of head coaches. So you're the likely scapegoat if things go poorly. You've still got to get through to Elias Patterson. You failed at that over the last 2 years. You now have the question of Quinn's future hanging over the franchise. You would be relying on your bosses, General Manager Patrick Alvin, President of Hockey Operations Jim Rutherford, to land you, at least 2. Jim even numbered 3, right? Forwards and top 6 forwards at that. Not easy commodities to get. You got a meddlesome owner who is in everybody's pockets when things are going poorly. And the Vancouver Canucks are not the team that wants to break the bank on a head coach. So your money, maybe even your term, but I think for sure your runway are all going to be bigger elsewhere. So, if Rick Tocchet is, no, I want to finish this job. We had an awful season that has left a terrible taste in my mouth. I ain't going out like that. I ain't going out without getting through to Elias. He is a better player than what we've seen for the last year and a half. I am going back there because I have unfinished business. If that is Rick Tocchet's position, God bless him. That is very noble, very honorable of him. I think he's done a good job in his time here in Vancouver. I think he's a good market fit. I would love to see him back. But if he chooses to go elsewhere or chooses just not to come back and coach this outfit after the emotionally draining, frustrating season that it was, I would completely understand.
And really, there's no wrong answer there. So everything you said there is understandable. Get all that. I came at it from this angle. How many coaches get to know they have one of, well, the top, or even if you want to go top 2 players in any positions on their team? And they certainly have one in Quinn Hughes. They might even, you could make the argument, have 2 if you have a healthy Thatcher Demko. 2 massive, I mean, again, we're not talking about great players. There's a lot of great players in the NHL. We are talking one of the handful to 2 handful best players on the planet in Quinn Hughes. That's what you have to work with. That's part of your ball of clay. You go elsewhere, promising places like Anaheim, nowhere close. Now, you can still paint a rosy picture about where the Ducks are headed, where the Flyers are headed, things like that. You can paint pictures that make it sound good. You still don't have one of the top players on the planet in your roster. So, to me, that's going to be the biggest dangling carrot. What can't be ruled out here is the human side of things. More so than the hockey side of things. We'll talk about Anaheim. It's very close, a drive away from where his home base is now in Nevada. And just, who doesn't want to wear flip-flops to work? There's that. So that plus some debatably better competitive situations. I don't know that there's a strong argument about better competitive scenarios for at least the super near future.
That one is sort of in the eye of the beholder a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the New York Rangers won the Paterson Trophy last year and had a
just
dreadful.
edging out the Canucks, though. So if you're going to use that, you got to.
No, I understand that, but that's kind of the point. That if there's the Rangers could easily bounce back next year. There's a worldview where that team got old.
Yep.
Defense isn't as good, and it's on its way down. There's also a worldview where that team could bounce right back. Right?
Maybe. I mean, I'm of the they're old and they're done standpoint. That's my view.
Well, okay. I mean, JT's still a pretty good player.
Original 16
Panarin,
with Connor Bedard is interesting. That's
although I think that team has a long way to go.
But
again, that becomes a runway question, Blake.
So much.
You're
little
getting
pressure.
minimum 2, probably 3 years.
Minimum 3 in Chicago.
In a Chicago, in an Anaheim, in a Seattle.
Yeah.
Boston, I'd be a little less sure. Boston is also a very
it's an American
debatable
cauldron.
Well, but it's a debatable one in terms of a bounce back. Are we finally going to see now a rebuild, so to speak, of the Boston Bruins?
For sure.
Given who is left there, how last summer went for them, and the fact that they moved some veteran players.
Now
Brandon Carlo, they were under no obligation to move Carlo with 2 years left on his deal, and yet they did.
They're not as old as you would think.
Boston?
Yeah. Now with
they trade Marchand out. I mean, he got a lot younger there.
The only 30-year-old in the forward ranks is Elias Lindholm.
Right.
The only
Coyle. Oh no, they trade Coyle too. Yeah. Right.
The only 30-year-old on the defensive ranks is Nikita Zadorov, Hampus Lindholm if he's playing again. But that's it. There's not many guys with the age that starts with 3. There's
Yep.
4 on the entire
Yep.
roster.
So even there, you could probably make the case for a bounce back, particularly since you've got a darn good goaltender there. So anyways, there are a million different ways that you can view these openings vis-a-vis the Canucks, from the competitive side of things, from the runway, from the money in term side of things, from the market and market pressure side of things. But I agree with John Shannon and everybody else. Every hour that goes by, for me, makes it less likely that Tocchet is going to be back next season coaching the Vancouver Canucks. Our friends at Surrey Mitsubishi, happy to give you $500 off a new or pre-owned vehicle. Just mention Sekeres and Price, and if you're out there and you're shopping, bring Surrey Mitsubishi any offer. They will beat it. Score more, save more value, more savings. Visit 13820 104th Avenue. Time now for our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Whitecaps wallop Lionel Messi in Miami before a record crowd at BC Place on Thursday. A 2-0 victory before 53,000 people, an MLS record. Brian White, Sebastian Berhalter are the heroes. Andres Cubas gets under Lionel Messi's skin, and the Argentine is booed upon every touch for his no-show last season. Bottom line, justice for the Caps, their supporters, soccer fans in BC who get their wish to see the GOAT live and get a resounding victory for the home team. Head coach Jesper Sorensen in the postgame, every player put everything on the pitch tonight.
It was...
You attended.
Yeah, it was a scintillating night. I think it's the most attended event I've ever been at physically at BC Place. I saw a Lions playoff game versus the Riders back in the aughts, the Duncan O'Mahony field goal to win over the Riders.
Yes.
That was 46,000 or something like that. But I had never been at an event where I made sure of it. I was like, are the back rows going to be full? The top row in every section was filled to the rafters. And watching the place pop for the opening goal, it was one thing because everybody knew that it was relatively early in the match. Great that they scored the goal, and it had to be the loudest goal celebrated for Brian White in his illustrious career already, so I felt really good for him in getting that. But the second goal, which seals the deal, and the fact that it was so emphatically hammered home by Berhalter, the place blew up. It was so much fun. It was a goosebumps sort of night.
Yeah, it was.
And for an organization
for that Berhalter goal, I mean, you could see it coming.
And credit Jaden Nelson with his speed for creating that Sabi too on the right side. But here's the thing: if you had told me 2 years ago, even Whitecaps are going to comfortably beat Inter Miami 2-0, where Ralph Priso is on the pitch for a fair amount of time, where Sebastian Berhalter starts, no Ryan Gauld. A 19-year-old plays left back for the duration of the game in Tate Johnson, and guys like Sabi, Adekubi, and Nelson play minimal roles, if any role at all. I would have thought, what are you talking about? There is no chance. But that is what Jesper Sorensen has done that Vanny didn't do or couldn't do. He's made Priso a very serviceable player here.
Well, he's made a lot of players serviceable players. Like Berhalter has
Berhalter's
become a
beyond
very
that
good
now.
player, not just a spare part.
Right.
This Johnson story at left back is extraordinary. He's an MLS super draft pick out of North Carolina. Like
a teenager, too.
No airs about him or anything like that. And here he is locking down an important position, as he has for weeks here because of injury to Adekube. Nelson's been a revelation since coming back from Europe. White, you continue to wait for the bottom to drop out on Brian White. No. Like, there's now chatter on social every time. Is he the best option for Team USA at striker?
I mean, people just wanted to write him off. He's a good American striker, quote unquote, a good American striker.
Yeah, he's a serviceable MLS
player.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's a prolific MLS player now.
He is now. And there was even questions about Takaoka. Is he really,
Well, they didn't even have to use him last night.
No, well, they have used them much all year. They're in possession of the ball. They're pushing forward.
Well,
they're leading the other teams
and that's
out.
what should be noted too. It was not a possession game for them. Inter Miami said, we're going to put everybody forward so you don't get the ball. And it worked for them. They had the ball the entire time, but the Whitecaps really didn't let them inside. They played good, desperate defense in the box. And because they are so damn fast now, the elder statesman on Miami could not compete. As soon as the Whitecaps were able to get possession and get one ball over the top or one through ball, oh my God, they were off to the races. Yep. I mean, as much as possession was 70-30, the Whitecaps could have won that game 4-0. Like that early cross from, who crossed on the right side? It was Ocampo just in front of Brian White. Like that was a tap-in goal. If it's 2 feet closer to Brian White, it's a tap-in goal.
There's another one, Ocampo, a new addition, who's giving them great minutes. I heard Axel earlier in the week saying he felt very good about his center backs, Veselinovic and Blackman, and Vitae and Kubas are playing some of the best soccer we've seen them play. Like, so
they could be European bound. Those two
honestly, it is man for man. Like, you could go down every stall in the dressing room, and see an improved player or a guy who's making big contributions to this year's team. And it's a sensational story.
And unlike the offense of the Canucks, say in the first half of last year, where it was PDO, like soccer's been tracking effectively the PDO with expected goals for a long, long time. The Whitecaps are not outscoring their expected goals.
No.
Like
they're just scoring.
They're right on par. Like they are scoring at the appropriate rate given the chances they create for themselves. So this is not luck. This is just how good they are. So here's the scenario. With that second goal too, that Berhalter goal is so massive, and the shutout is so massive. Whitecaps have the 2-goal lead going down to Miami for Wednesday next week. If they get one road goal, and they've been road warriors, particularly in this tournament, if they get one road goal, it necessitates at least a 4-1 victory for Inter Miami.
That's right. That is Wednesday, and then the CONCACAF Champions Cup final, which is a single game, not a tie, not a two-leg, would go June 1st. The opponent would either be Cruz Azul of Mexico City or Tigres. We've seen Tigres in the past.
Tigres.
Vancouver could host that final, although it is more likely to be held in one of the two Mexican cities.
Whitecaps need to win by at least 2 goals, preferably 3 in Miami. They need to hope that the Mexican standoff between those two that you mentioned is a draw.
So quite literally, the Mexican standoff is what they're
right. Yes, and depending on which team would prevail in penalties, it would have another scenario.
Cruz Azul's Mexico City, Tigres plays out of
Monterrey.
Okay. Let me ask you this: did the crowd get to Messi last night? We had wondered how many are going to boo him, how many are just going to be awestruck in his presence. He was the villain last night. Do you think the crowd got to him? We're going to play the video here. There was one fan taunting him with the Cristiano Ronaldo jersey as he left the pitch, and he got a reaction out of Messi.
I would love to know somebody. I would love to know somebody that follows Messi a ton. How many times has he been vociferously booed in his career?
I can't imagine a lot, because he's kind of inoffensive.
Right, and so often he's obviously the enemy on the pitch at the very least, but the respect is so great wherever he goes, and people do want to see a little bit of spectacularness from him.
Right.
That at the very least they buzz when he touches the ball, but they don't flat out boo. When he went in for the couple corners on his side of the pitch, oh my God, he was absolutely attacked. Not thankfully physically, but it was something.
Well, and I think that had a lot to do with last year.
Yeah,
and I understand
all of it. Yeah.
Anyways,
the fans got to him, but Kubas did too.
Yeah,
which was great.
An all-time moment for Vancouver Whitecaps FC in the history of the club and for Vancouver sport. Where were you conversation down the road, and of course, bragging rights for those who were in attendance. Something tells me this is going to be much like the Pavel Bure game, where far more than 53,837 will claim to have been there. We know Elias Patterson was one of them.
Yeah,
Vancouver
he was there.
Canuck on hand, of course. Why wouldn't you want to see Messi? And now for the Caps this season: 8 wins, 6 draws, and 16 matches, just 2 losses across all competitions. They take a 4-point lead atop the MLS West into Sunday's road game at second place Minnesota. Minnesota, one of 2 teams that are 4 points back. So this is a big one on the MLS side of things. And you just keep waiting for the other shoe to drop in terms of, okay, it's been so much travel, so many games. At some point, they're going to expire, be fatigued, put up a real stinker, or go on a skid. And yet it hasn't happened yet.
I think, and here's the genius again. Didn't even use Adekubi. Didn't start Sabi or Nelson. So I think you got 3 guys immediately that can jump in, and I think Bjorn Utvik could come in as well.
Yep.
Take some load as
might get Laborda back for next week in Miami, right?
Yeah.
Probably a little soon Sunday, but
By the way, I went down the rabbit hole on notable. We talked about GOAT performances on home soil. Mm-hmm. Pele has played here like a handful of times.
Yep.
A handful of times in the 70s.
Well, Pele played in a lot of markets. Yeah.
Yeah, like he really, when he signed with the Cosmos, he took it upon. There was no Messi, editorializing the schedule. Like he went wherever he was damn told to go.
Load management wasn't a thing back then, right? And there was a massive commercial interest in getting Pele to every single market. North America was very much the next frontier for that sport back then. I mean, still is to some degree. And it was a massive, massive deal to see the great Pele in your town, in your stadium. So that doesn't surprise me.
Brought 30,000 to Empire. Here it brought 50, almost 54 to BC Place.
Yep. What's up with Yellow Dog and Neighborhood this weekend?
Well, as we're going to get through this entire show, there's a lot of fun stuff on the sporting schedule. I mentioned you can watch a Whitecaps match on TV. You got Abbotsford. You'll have to stream that one at the AHL website. Warriors as well. You better have a lot of beer around. Here's where the rescue lager comes in handy from Yellow Dog Brewing. A 15-pack. The first time they've ever done a 15-pack. So go get the Rescue Lager, and every sip of the crisp, refreshing brew also contributes to Yellow Dog's passionate partnership with the BCSPCA. The 15-pack of Rescue Lager.
Abbotsford Canucks fall 4-1 in Game 2 on Thursday night. And now the whole shooting match comes down to Game 3 tomorrow at Abbey Center in this first-round AHL Calder Cup playoff series against Tucson. Linus Karlsson, the only goal for the home team last night. Arturs Silovs stops 28 of 31 pucks and did get the start, so they're riding Silovs. They have declared him number 1. But the counterpart last night, who did not play in Game 1, Jackson Stauber, 38 saves on 39 shots before 4,062 people at Abbotsford Center. That was up about 300 fans from Wednesday. We thought it would get a little better for Game 2. Mm-hmm. It's still not great crowds out there. Hey, no excuses Saturday, right? It's a weekend. It is a deciding game for a team that has been on such a heater down the stretch in the AHL. That said, they haven't played well for 4+ periods here since taking a 4-1 lead in Game 1 against Tucson and hanging on for a 4-3 victory. And head coach Manny Malhotra was talking about the mistakes last night.
Obviously not the game we wanted. Too many self-inflicted mistakes that they took advantage of, and that was the story of our night.
Yeah. Max Sasson was saying, got to get grittier near the goal, that a little more extra effort in and around the scoring zone is required. That maybe they punch a puck or two in, and it's a different story last night if they are. Anyways, we'll see. Big game tomorrow, and really huge day tomorrow. You got the Abbotsford playoff game, and you've got a single elimination playoff game at Rogers Arena for the National
They're both single elimination.
Lacrosse League's Vancouver Warriors back in the playoffs for the first time since 2017, hosting a playoff game. This is an NLL quarterfinal. And I was thinking, Blake, you have this incredible success for the Whitecaps. You have 53,000 in BC Place. I imagine you're going to get a good number of return customers after a night like that.
Well, that's
I
the
mean,
big
how
hope.
could you not?
That's the big hope.
You have the Warriors, who have won 6 in a row and have taken their fans on a bit of a run, and could very well be a story here because we get into longer playoff series after this round in the NLL in the semis. And, Abby too. So if you're sitting there as a Vancouver Canuck season ticket subscriber and you're looking at the local sports scene and going, look at all this winning. Look at all these playoff games. Jim Rutherford said on Monday season ticket renewals are well over 90%, but for those still musing, does the lack of home success this year and then seeing the other clubs in town provide better bang for the buck and more winning? Is that going to further sour some Canucks fans and season ticket subscribers?
Well, if you want an excuse to have your cake and eat it too, if you are a Canucks season ticket holder, and they were close, they're a few points away from forcing you, quote unquote, to buy playoff tickets, and you would have bought the playoff tickets, let's face it, you have all that money just sitting there because you were going to buy it. So it's in a pot. Well, start to go see these. I mean, again, these are backs against the wall games here in Abbotsford and at Rogers Arena this weekend. And we had the one last night for the Whitecaps. I mean, you've got disposable income theoretically right there. Go spend it.
Except it's been accounted for with the increase.
Well, that's true.
Let's go back to Monday. And I understand why the question was put to Jim Rutherford. I also understand the way he answered the question. But here's Rutherford on the frustration of season ticket holders.
From a lot of fans that are very frustrated about that. So I'm just wondering what your message is to those fans who are looking at 20% raise in their tickets, and what the message is.
Well, I understand the frustration. I don't like to pay more for anything either. None of us do. But not being in the playoffs after having a price increase is hard for people to understand. I'm not responsible for the price of tickets, so I'll make that clear. It's not my lane. But the one thing I will say is part of that is not just about the hockey team with the cap going up. That is part of it. But another part of it is the building that we have, is investing money back into an older building that we're fortunate that is almost filled for every game. And our renewal rate on season's ticket is very high. It's well into the 90%. So I can understand the frustration of people, but they do have to understand that the money's being invested back into the building and to offset the cap. Part of what we deal with here, it's not tariffs, fortunately, but it is the exchange rate. And all our cost of doing, all our revenue is in Canadian funds. But when we have a $90 million cap, or 88 this year, going to 95 next year, that's really like 130 million in our dollars with how we do our business. So you've got these different variables that we have to deal with, and unfortunately for our very, very loyal fans that we're thankful for, we have to keep up with that.
And I thought that was an excellent answer from Jim Rutherford, one of many on Monday, because he could have very easily said, hey, not my lane, sorry, can't answer your question. But he did his best to explain it, and I think he hit all the appropriate notes. Now, it may not resonate with you if you're a season ticket subscriber and are looking at a 20% jump for next year. But he's correct that Rogers Arena is an old building. He is correct that Rogers Arena needs continuous upgrades. Frankly, the Canucks have been a little slow, needless to say, on the seats. It won it. But there are other areas of the building that have made really big improvements. Like the sports bar is fantastic. We watched a game up there with our buddy Daniel from Surrey Mitsubishi. That's been an awesome addition to the arena. The Loge is a fantastic place to watch a game as well. Now you have these new, fancy seats. You've also had to do some work down at the event level for the players and the space provided for them. And let's face it, with the cost of real estate in Vancouver, I mean, they've got enough trouble finding land and building a practice facility. So a new arena is not coming anytime soon. It's going to have to be like Madison Square Garden, where it goes through frequent renovations and in some cases, huge renovation. Like there will be a year. You remember the Rangers? What was it, like 10 years ago or so, had to play the first 15 games on the road or whatever because MSG was getting a full makeover. That's very much going to be the case for Rogers Arena, at least under this ownership group. The exchange rate is also legitimate. Now, caveat there, NHL teams have been advised for decades now to make sure you hedge, to make sure you're buying American dollars when it's a little closer to, low ebb than it is right now, to make sure you can not be pulverized by jumps in the exchange rate. So I hear what he's saying there. I would sure hope that Canucks Sports Entertainment, it's a 20-year owner here, is wise to the hedging factor. The cap is absolutely going up too, so the player costs are going up. And he's also right to note that you've got national television revenue coming now from a much more lucrative deal from Rogers. And so, look, are they going to decrease the price of your season tickets? Likely no.
No, that's not happening.
But that should hopefully offset any further jumps, although given the owner, I think if they're back in the playoffs next year, he'll view it as licensed.
It was a great answer from Jim Rutherford.
It was.
If this was a one-off, if this was the first time they've raised prices in 5 years. Problem is that it has been incessant over a long period of losing. And hey, no one's saying it's illegal what they're doing. You're allowed to do whatever the hell you want. And if people keep buying their tickets, well, then you don't learn any lessons in the whole thing. But I would think there is a time where you push too far. And I wonder when that moment is going to be, when this team not only continues to miss the playoffs, lose an inordinate amount of games, lose them at home, which is where you are paying to see them, and with inflation and tariffs and all that sort of stuff affecting everybody's everyday lives. So there is a point where it just comes off terribly, and you wreck your brand by doing this consistently. When you buy a National Hockey League franchise, you commit to some level of cost. It is not hey, everybody wants to do this because you make so much money all the time. Like, you take on some risk and you take on some inherent cost. You own a big property there that gets wear and tear. Concert goers aren't exactly kind to the building when they come in to see their favorite band. It's got wear and tear. It's not all on the hockey fan to bankroll that.
All of that is correct, Blake. All of that is correct. And yet, as Rutherford noted, their renewal rate is well into the 90%. And here's the thing they have going for them that they won't say out loud, but I will. There are some crazy rich people who live in this city who are more than happy to pay the freight. If you want to call it conspicuous consumption, fair enough. If you want to say more money, don't know what to do with it, yep, that too.
I would love to know.
There is an affluence in this city, and Vancouver Canucks games are events, or at least enough of a draw.
Theoretical events.
Yeah. At one time they were events, but at the least there is enough demand for them that people with money want to be in the building on certain nights or X number of nights a year, and so they buy the season ticket packages. And look, the gap between rich and poor is growing everywhere, particularly in this market. But so long as you have that affluent class here, I think they've been conditioned to learn we can still be shitty and charge these prices, and we have enough rich people who are going to pay the freight.
And that very well might be true. That very well be. I don't know that floats.
You're going to price the middle class out. I don't dispute that. At some point, you're going to price the middle class out. At some point, you're just going to basically alienate some of your customers who go, no, not a good enough product, not worth my money. But you're still going to be able to fall back on all these rich guys who just want to go watch NHL hockey.
I would love to know the accuracy of the 90% statement, because every team you've ever talked to in your entire life has claimed 90% season ticket renewal rates. Secondly, I'd love to know what the success rate was of that Champions Club section, because just anecdotally,
I've never once seen it full.
I've never seen it full, and anecdotally, I have. For the size of that section,
only 100 and some seats.
Right. So for considering that, Matt, the number of people that have been like, you know what, I got invited to the Champions Club sections. Some guy offered me free, not some guy off the street, but friends of friends offered me free seats. Like, there was a lot of free seats circling around from that Champions Club.
I think they had higher hopes for it. I think they might have overpriced that as well. I believe it's 6 figures there, huh?
Yeah.
I know in year one they were well shy and were,
I know a lot of people have sat in those seats that should not have sat in those seats, and I don't know how that happens.
We're in the tax brackets to sit in those seats.
So how did that happen?
I think they had higher hopes for that, but again, they may have overpriced it, much like they overpriced a lot. All right, Stanley Cup playoffs, where the Battle of Ontario is on the verge of ending here, as every Battle of Ontario has ever ended in the Stanley Cup playoffs, with a Leafs victory, and this one looking relatively easy. Our old friend Travis Green saying he was disheartened by the loss and falling back 3-0. His Ottawa Senators versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Very good win for St. Louis, and needed. Put a lot of goals in and get the first game in that series. So an opportunity to tie the Winnipeg Jets and maybe get the Jets getting a little nervous on their way home to Winnipeg, given their tortured playoff history. Minnesota is doing a number here on the Vegas Golden Knights. That series is a lot of fun, Blake. Like that one, I'm looking now and going, that's got 6-7 games written all over it, and I think that's going to be one of the series we're talking about after the end of the first round. And the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions, up 2 Cobb on their in-state rivals from Tampa and going home.
One way to avoid the Stanley Cup hangover is just play the minimum amount of playoff games the second time around. And they might be able to do that through a round or two. And I'm not even joking. Like, if you get a couple 4 or 5 game series, the Stanley Cup hangover is a hell of a lot easier to deal with.
Must wins for Montreal, New Jersey, and Edmonton tonight, all trailing 2-0 in their series. And the Oilers are going to Calvin Pickard, much like against the Vancouver Canucks last year in the second round, where they felt a need to take Stuart Skinner out of the goal and go with the backup. Wow, your season riding on Calvin Pickard again. How many times can the Edmonton Oilers get away with this?
Matt, unless the Oilers...
they are going home, of course.
Unless the Oilers make it to the Stanley Cup final again, win or lose, because, again, we've talked about this. You make the Stanley Cup final, you've had a good year. Unless they make it to the final, I don't know how they can bring back these 2 goaltenders next season.
Oh, no, Blake, I don't think you can bring back these 2 goaltenders regardless. Like, you've had multiple opportunities year over year to fix your goaltending. We talked about it yesterday. All these other teams went out and fixed their goaltending.
Yeah.
L.A., Washington, Colorado, Ottawa, even Vancouver when they had the turn of fate with Thatcher Demko last summer. All these teams have gone out and capably solved their goaltending problems. Edmonton, it's just remains an open wound.
Yeah.
Since going to best of 7 series, teams that go 2 love up win 86% of the time. So the odds are already stacked against the Canadiens, Oilers, Devils, Tampa, much as they were against the Senators going into last night. Of course, just the 4 teams to ever come back from 0-3 down: 42 Leafs, 75 Islanders, 2010 Flyers, and 2014 Kings. 6 different teams forced Game 7s after falling behind 3-0. We remember 2011 and the Chicago Blackhawks against Vancouver. Detroit did it that year as well. Came back from 3-0 down, and Edmonton did it in the Cup final last year. But Blake, between the 75 Islanders, one of the 4 teams that did, Blake, we went 35 years between a team falling behind 3-0 and even forcing a Game 7. Forget winning, just forcing a Game 7. So absolutely need victories if you're a Montreal, Edmonton, or Jersey fan tonight. And Tuesday, we will find out if Quinn Hughes is a Norris Trophy finalist again this year. Of course, he won the award for the NHL's best defenseman last year. The NHL has announced its list of trophy finalists and when they will be announced for next week. You see it there, the Vezina on Monday, the Ted Lindsay on Wednesday, the Hart on Thursday, but the Norris on Tuesday. I submitted my ballot last week for the NHL Player Awards. I voted Quinn Hughes number 2 on the Norris list behind Cale Makar. I just couldn't find a justification to put him number 1. We had talked about, is he the best player in the NHL vis-a-vis most valuable to his team? Yep, there was that metric, but there was also missed games there. There was also the season that Cale Makar had. Now, Blake, I suspect most people went Makar-Werenski 1-2 on their ballot this year. So it becomes a question of how much did the missed games hurt Quinn Hughes? How much did the Canucks' record and falling short of the Stanley Cup playoffs hurt Quinn Hughes? What do you think? Are we going to see him as one of the 3 finalists?
Yeah, I think he still gets into, to me, it would be highway robbery if he wasn't. Through 50 games, he was number 1. He should have been number 1, despite the season that both Werenski and Makar. So are you telling me he went from the number 1 guy on the ballot after 50 games, but the last 32 played by anybody? He didn't play the final 32, but the last 32 played by anybody, he works his way off the ballot as the incumbent trophy winner? No, I don't think so. I think his reputation helps buffer that a little bit, and he at least gets on the ballot for sure.
We'll look for that on Tuesday. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta. Fantastic spot to watch all the games, home and away, pregame, postgame, your steps from the arena and stadium. They have the fantastic, delicious street food menu, as well as the arcade that encircles the bar, making all those noises, all those expressions of glee. The air hockey's amazing. Check it out. Weekly drink specials, 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. We're going to talk to JPat here. Jeff has been covering the Abbotsford Canucks playoff series with RinkWide Vancouver. It's RinkWide Abbotsford. And they'll be back at it again tomorrow night after Game 3. We'll also talk about Rick Tocchet's future here. Well, again, with every day and hour that passes with the Vancouver Canucks head coach and no decision yet rendered, or at least no decision yet announced. Axel Schuster is going to join us as well. He didn't have a lot of sleep last night.
Not because it was a party.
It was a good night to be Axel Schuster.
I got the feeling it's because he was just buzzing. But I don't
the
think
adrenaline. I don't know how you get to sleep. He brought some jokes. Told us how he watched the game last night. And we discussed this magical season that the Whitecaps are in the midst of. So that's coming up on the program later in the show. Our intern Jaden Tage is going to join us. He works for the NLL Warriors, so we'll talk about them as well as the NFL draft. The Vancouver Canadians, and an incredible comeback in the NBA playoffs with 2 Canadians featuring prominently. All that's coming up on the program. Time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. Went 1-2 last night, had St. Louis and Ottawa with backs against the wall. I'm going back there tonight. Bell Center, one of the great venues for the Stanley Cup playoffs, a difficult place to play if you're the visitor, and a Montreal team that was close in Washington. This hasn't been your 1-8 blowouts or anything like that. I say they get one done tonight. So give me the Habs at +100.
I got my win last night too. I thought the Wild. I still think the Knights pull off the series, but I thought the Wild would get that one last night, and they handily got it. I can't turn away from the Oilers with Pickard in that. The way the Kings have played, marvelously game planned. It's a little like Whitecaps versus Messi, isn't it? The Kings versus McDavid. And they've made it work. +125 on the Kings. On the road, granted, but taking on a wounded Oilers team, wounded mentally at the very least.
Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs? At Bet365, they got you. From game props, player props, totals, money line. You can even bet on futures like the Stanley Cup champions, the conference champions, series winners, so much more. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older. Jeff Patterson coming up next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center in this next segment, brought to you by the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club. Spring preparations underway. Very excited for opening day, May 9th. And now accepting online bookings for the entirety of the 2025 season. No need to wait. Get those times locked in. And if you do have a group of 12 or more, very important, get those times on hold right now. The prime times always fill up fast at the Whistler Golf Club. And tell them about your group, whistlergolf.com/groups. Follow on social media at Whistler Golf. As we welcome in the host of RinkWide Vancouver, RinkWide Abbotsford, and our Vancouver Canucks reporter, Mr. Jeff Patterson, who was busy last night covering the AHL's Abbey Canucks in their playoff series. How are you, Jeff?
Yeah, doing all right. And have been happy to cover Abbotsford, although I feel like I missed out. I was one of the few that wasn't there at BC Place last night. So great show. Good to see. And yeah, it's such a cool environment to see BC Place packed like that and to have the home side come out and perform the way that they did and the way that they have all season. So, yes, add me to the list that is firmly in the camp of Whitecaps 2025.
Well, and, a moment in Vancouver sporting history that won't soon be forgotten. And the other thing, Jeff, we were talking about yesterday, Gretzky, Jordan, it is a very short list in terms of
goats.
Yeah, goats who have played in our city. And Lionel Messi, we ticked the box last night.
Yeah, I mean, I remember all those years where there was so much hand-wringing. And this predates UMAP, but Blake, you were around. You know, the Greater Vancouver Open and the Air Canada Championship, that it was always who didn't come and why. Why didn't they like Vancouver? And,
why we love Payne Stewart, right? Payne showed up. Yeah.
Although you go back in history and Sergio played here and Vijay Singh and obviously Mike Weir had his coming out party.
Adam Scott.
Yeah, like there were some names, but obviously the guys at the top of the heap didn't. And that was always the storyline around that golf tournament. So, yeah, it's great when one of the legends, a living legend, comes to town, and then, we can send him packing with a loss like we did last night. So get out of town now, Messi, and take your lumps, and let's see what happens in the second leg of this thing.
So, I mean, the Big Cat never played the Air Canada Championship, the great?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's too bad. Too bad. Jeff, let's get on to the big Canucks, and then we'll get on to the baby Canucks, who obviously have a huge one tomorrow now in their playoff series. But we talked to you Monday. Here we are Friday. It's been a week since Rick Tocchet has met the media, gone home, and apparently was supposed to come back here to Vancouver. Where are you in terms of whether Tocchet will be back next season to coach the Canucks?
Well, where is he, I suppose? Saw reports that people were on his flight yesterday from Vegas, if we take those at face value, that he's back in town now. Is that to sign documents? Is that to pack up his final belongings and get out of here once and for all? Are we in for a Friday afternoon news drop? Wouldn't be the first time that we have seen that. Look, I don't think this can go a whole lot longer. You heard Jim Rutherford's comments about, kind of going outside their comfort zone and obviously putting an offer in front of Rick Tocchet that's going to make him the most highly compensated Canucks coach by a considerable margin if, in fact, the two sides agree that that's the path forward here. So it feels like it's in Rick Tocchet's court. Like, I can't imagine that there's a whole lot more negotiating to be done here. And I think that was the message that I took from Rutherford, was basically our best and final is now in a document in front of him and his agent, and it's up to Rick to decide if he wants to be here, whether he likes the direction of this hockey club, whether he thinks that he's got options elsewhere. And to hear Rutherford say they don't want a guy here if he's got his mind elsewhere. And so I can't see this getting through the weekend, quite frankly.
Really? Okay.
I feel like time has been ticking here. Rutherford said that he thought there would be a resolution by the end of the week. It's now Friday. I'm not saying that this is a hard and fast deadline. My sense is that this isn't going to play out a whole lot longer.
So your eyebrow is raised. You are thinking something has gone awry. I mean, I guess he could just come out and say, I'm not coming back. But if we haven't heard anything on Monday, what's going to be your emotion?
Oh, I think the longer it goes, the more Rick Tocchet must be considering options. If this was the job that he wanted and the Canucks had put a fair and reasonable offer in front of him, then I would think that this thing would have been a fait accompli by now, and that Rick Tocchet would have been announced as, getting an extension and moving forward here. Will there be some subtle tweaks to his coaching staff if he's back? He himself said that the part-time thing with Sergei Gonchar wasn't necessarily working. So, after a season of disappointment like this one, I kind of feel like there ought to be a little bit of change, that running it right back with the same roster and the same coaches and hoping that things are going to go like they did last year, hope can't ever be the plan. And so we'll see where it goes. But I just think that the longer this thing goes, it feels to me, and look, it's just a hunch, right? It's a professional hunch, having been at this for a while. The longer it goes, the more I feel like something has happened here to further the disconnect between these two parties.
The way he spoke a week ago was somewhat unprepared on some of the future questions, but then on things like Petey, of course, he weighs in on what that player needs to do, and so that sort of speaks like a coach that still anticipates having that player. All that feeds the why. If he doesn't come back, try to get inside the coach's head. What do you think would be the chief reason why Rick Tocchet doesn't return as Canucks head coach?
My sense is that he views the big picture the way that a lot of people do, and certainly the uncertainty around Quinn Hughes, as much as Hughes has gone to bat for him and Tocchet has spoken glowingly about the player and the captain. If Quinn leaves, that obviously changes the conversation on so many levels. But beyond that, I just think that this path forward, and Rutherford himself talked about how difficult it's going to be. I'm not sure that the Canucks can accomplish everything on their wish list in one off season that's going to get them to the places they want to be. So I kind of feel like this is going to be a multi-step process. It may be a couple of years of them spinning their wheels. And does Rick Tocchet want that if he knows that he's got options elsewhere that can take him to a place that is closer to contending? So, there are some pieces here without a doubt. This isn't starting from scratch. They haven't burned this thing down entirely. But, if they can't get out there and get Rick Tocchet the players that he's looking for, the players that he thinks that he can win with here in the summertime, what does next season look like? What does the season after that look like? And that takes us up, obviously, to the expiration of Quinn Hughes' contract. So I think my answer would be just sort of the longer-term vision here and the outlook for this hockey club. If he's got some reservations, if he thinks that there's a softer landing spot somewhere else that can put him closer to contention.
Yeah, and then there are those other jobs, Jeff. How attractive do you think the field is of the NHL coaching vacancies for the moment, and which ones Tocchet may factor into?
Yeah, I look around, and I doubt that we're done. I always think that a team that underachieves and flames out in the first round of the playoffs is likely to make a change. So the list that we've got may not be completely complete. Obviously, if you're looking at big markets and high profile, you got the Rangers front and center. We all know the connections to Philadelphia, and a lot of people had done more than pencil Tocchet into Philadelphia. I think some people had written that one down in some ink. And perhaps it still goes that direction. When I look at the openings, though, the sneaky one to me is Anaheim, because I really am a believer that team is about to launch and did some really good things already this season. And so, not that Rick Tocchet is a shrinking violet in any way, and doesn't shy away from the media coverage, but just in terms of a place you could go and work, punch the clock, but you could also live a pretty good life in the California sunshine and not deal with some of the things and the distractions that some of these other jobs present. And I just think that they've done a nice job in Anaheim in terms of stockpiling young talent. Now, 5 years ago, we thought the Canucks had done a nice job of stockpiling young talent. That doesn't always pan out, but I like a lot of what the Ducks have put together there. They've got they had the 3rd overall pick last year, Bennett Seneke, who's going to join them in short order, and they're going to get another decent draft pick this year if, in fact, they use it. At some point, you got to roll all that potential together and make some real steps forward. But they've got goaltending and Lucas Dostal. Jackson Lacombe has emerged already as a terrific young defenseman. They've got other pieces there on the back end. And then up front, Leo Carlson and Mason McTavish and Cutter Gauthier had a nice rookie season, got to 20. So, for me, I like the look of that Anaheim job, and I am curious to see what direction the Ducks go with it.
Ditto. If Tocchet does leave, is Manny Malhotra a candidate? Should Manny Malhotra be a candidate? And do you believe there's any part of an audition going on here in Abbotsford?
Yeah, I think he'd be in the running. People would say, hey, first year as a head coach at any level. But look, this guy's been around the game, obviously as a player, and has apprenticed as an assistant coach here and in Toronto. That part doesn't scare me off. Manny was a thoughtful guy as a player. I think, he sees the game, he thinks the game particularly well. Done an incredible job down in Abbotsford this year. So, yeah, but I say that, and I thought Jeremy Colleton was sort of being groomed within the system to perhaps get an opportunity. That didn't happen, so he bolted. And I'm not saying that Manny's going to bolt, but I think the job that Manny's done down on the farm this year certainly would get the attention of other teams and organizations around the National Hockey League. And, when I look at a Spencer Carberry who, didn't have a huge profile, but just had quietly climbed the ranks and had done good work and by reputation gets the opportunity. And guys, this is how crazy the coaching carousel is in the National Hockey League these days. Spencer Carberry isn't even at the end of his 2nd season as the head coach of the Washington Capitals. He's going to be the coach of the year. He's now 10th in seniority in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, crazy.
The churn is ridiculous. And
The Edmonton Oilers responsible for a lot of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, Rick Tocchet resides in the top 10 now, and
Yeah.
he's only been 2.5 years on the job. But I was just looking at the list the other day. Carberry and Andrew Brunette were both hired at the end of the hockey season coming up on 2 years ago, and they're 10th and 11th in tenure right now among all active head coaches. So,
But the Canucks aren't looking for a finishing coach, like the Oilers, for instance, if they were to move on after an early departure. Like, they're not looking for that coach to finally give them the Stanley Cup that they've been knocking on the door for. Like, Manny is not a crazy suggestion. It's not the seasoned guy maybe that some of the veteran Canucks would be loving, but I mean, I don't know that it's that offside of a call given where the Canucks are currently in their evolution, right?
yeah, and look, this is a different scenario for the Vancouver Canucks where they've made their pitch to the guy that they want to remain in the job. Here it's the coach that has the decision to make. If Rick Tocchet decides to go elsewhere, though, the next guy will be the 4th head coach in less than 4 years. And we watched the Edmonton Oilers. We all mocked the Edmonton Oilers from the outside not that long ago, where they did this basically, forget coach of the year, it was coach for a year. And they rolled through a ridiculous roster of head coaches. At some point, it's not the coach. They were hiring qualified coaches in Edmonton. And at some point, it's the roster construction, it's on the players themselves. The coach obviously has a role in all of that. But I just don't like the fact that, this management group has always talked about alignment from top to bottom. And if Rick Tocchet moves on, they're going to be on a 4th coach. Quinn Hughes is going to have his 4th coach in 4 years. Like, how? How do you move forward as an organization when the messaging, the voices are just in constant state of flux?
Let's move on to Abby.
Yes.
After a nice opening game in their best of 3, but what happened last night that makes it now a little bit dicey after this fabulous run? And this is the nature of a quick best of 3 to start the playoffs in the AHL. All of a sudden, it's do or die.
Yeah, it's the fear of every team, I think, in a best of 3 is running into a red-hot goaltender. And give Tucson credit. They started one guy on Wednesday night, and made the change going back-to-back. Manny Malhotra stuck with Arturs Silovs, and Silovs was actually pretty good in the third period last night. Abbotsford scored. They were down 3-0. They got an early goal in the third period, and I thought, okay, here they go. They've got momentum now, lots of time left. And the biggest disappointment to me was the way they played the third period. You think about score effects. Tucson the other night had pushed to get within one and then had that penalty shot. Abbotsford went awfully quietly in the third period, got outshot 12-8 after holding a 31-20 edge through the first 40 minutes. So the story of the night was 17 shots in the first period. They were all over Tucson and couldn't score, and had the first 4 power plays of the night where they cashed in twice in the opener. They end up going 0 for 5 with a man advantage. And, it's a short series, so there's still time, but there's not time after Saturday unless some of these guys that played and produced in the National Hockey League for the Vancouver Canucks this year, they're the ones that you have to look at. And I thought Max Sasson was the best skater on the ice for Abbotsford last night, but he didn't figure in the scoring. And so they need Max Sasson to be a difference maker. Ratu, I thought, was awfully quiet and has been really through the first couple games of this series. So Abbotsford scored 5 goals total. Sammy Blais had 2 on Wednesday night. Linus Karlsson has scored in each of them, but then you look at Sasson and Baines and Ratu, obviously. Jonathan Lekkerimäki has been remarkably quiet and a little concerning since getting sent back down this latest time has gone pointless in 6 games. Do I expect him to single-handedly win them a series? No, but when you're looking at guys that can, be game breakers, that's certainly what the Vancouver Canucks are hoping he develops into. He's been quiet, and quite frankly, and I'm like you guys, like through the regular season, we're all locked in on the Vancouver Canucks. So I've watched Abby from afar, most of it in box scores though, but watching closely here, Danila Klimovich led the team with 25 goals in the regular season, doesn't have a shot on goal through 2 games. Now, as Dave Hall pointed out on RinkWide last night, Klimovich was a constant in Abbotsford all season when everybody else was getting called up. So he played more games than just about anybody else at the AHL level this year. And he also played in an elevated role. So, we think, they're just going to airlift all these guys that were in the NHL and they're going to plunk them back in and look out. But there's sort of that trickle-down effect that some of the guys that had done a great job for Manny Malhotra and had picked up the slack and been productive, now they're playing in reduced roles. And I think Klimovich is one of those guys, but he just hasn't looked dangerous at all through the first couple of games here.
Arturs Silovs was the goalie of record again last night, Jeff. Is that it? Is Manny riding his guy now? Is Artie the guy? We're going to see Tolopila.
Yeah, my sense is that you've come this far with Arturs Silovs, who was winning games for the Vancouver Canucks in the playoffs at this time last year and got the win, the big penalty shot save in the final minute on Wednesday night. The 2-0 goal last night, didn't love clean look from the faceoff circle that I thought he probably could have stopped. But other than that, Jackson Stauber outplayed him. Jackson Stauber was the best goaltender on the ice last night. Jackson Stauber served as the backup to Karel Vejmelka in Utah for much of the season, played a few NHL games. But give Tucson's coach credit. He made the call there, made the right call to go to his other guy. And I don't think there's much doubt that the Canucks are going to see Jackson Stauber again on Saturday now in this deciding game. And so, I think Manny would have been happy enough with 17 first period shots and 14 more in the second. But Blake, how many times have we done this? How many times have we done post game where we've said, you don't want to spend the summer talking about all those chances? Don't tell me about the chances you created. Tell me about the goals you scored. And and that's kind of where
talk chances, right?
Yeah,
and winners
sure.
talk goals.
And so that's where I said, Max Sasson was making things happen. That part you like, but now how do you convert? When the chips are down and in a short series like this one, a Saturday night, a weekend in the Fraser Valley, I hope that people will get behind this hockey club because 3,670 on opening night, 300 more in there, just over 4,000 last night. But again, I think that's been part of the story here. A lot of empty seats. So it's win or go home.
Do or die game.
Let's hope they get a real home ice advantage.
Do or die game
absolutely.
on a Saturday. I've got high hopes. And just to be clear, Jeff, this is an opener best of 3, but you get a chance to breathe. If you win this game, not only do you move on, but it's a best of 5, correct, in the next round?
Next round's a best of 5, and then the AHL playoffs finish with 2 best of 7 series. So, yes, that's the way it goes. And this first round is a little bit screwy. Colorado won the division. They've got the bye here, and there are 3 series going on. One of the other ones could go until Monday. So, in terms of if Abbotsford advances on Saturday, The next round, we don't know when it would start, but it probably wouldn't start until closer to next weekend. So that would give them a little bit of breathing room and some downtime here. But, you sort of set it up with your first question to me. This is a team that has now lost twice outright in its last 20 hockey games. Like, they're 17-2-1. That has to matter. They've done so well down the stretch here, basically unbeatable. And I guess you like the fact that, they have risen to the challenge and sort of found ways to persevere, but they really haven't faced a lot of adversity either. They got on this hot streak and there was really no looking back. I mean, their adversity came with the players that weren't available to them because they were playing in the National Hockey League. But as much as you play for home ice, and that's the other thing too, they're the second seed here in the Pacific. So if they advance, they're going to start the next round at home as well. They know that much. So, no road trips for the Abbotsford Canucks for a while, as long as they get a victory on Saturday night. So, I think with Manny and his goaltending, yes, Nikita Tolopilo is there. Tolopilo had more wins than Arturs Silovs, but if there was a change to be made, I think it would have been on the back-to-backs here. And, at that point, you sort of have options and try to figure out who's got the hotter hand. But Tolopilo hasn't played any games since finishing up in the National Hockey League, so I do think it's going to be Arturs Silovs. And again, I'm not hanging the loss on him. I thought he was pretty good in the third period. It's just that they didn't do anything in the way of a push last night to get back in that hockey game.
Well, and really, this is the best case scenario for the Canucks. Silovs was ahead of Tolopilo and others going into the season. If you can get Arturs Silovs back to being a capable NHL goaltender, that would give the franchise perhaps some options through the summer. So I think you're rooting very hard for Abby here, but you're also rooting for Arturs Silovs to shine and potentially give the Canucks an option.
I mean, before we let you go, is it the last stand for Arturs Silovs? Like, if it fizzles out tonight and they lose games, like, are you kind of done with Arturs Silovs or tomorrow night? Are you kind of done with Arturs Silovs as a goaltending prospect on this team, guys?
Well, there's so many moving parts to this because if Rick Tocchet comes back, it was obvious. Rick Tocchet had no trust or faith in Arturs Silovs. He wouldn't play him, down the stretch. And that was part of the story here. And had there been more time, it was a question that I wanted to put to Patrick Alvin, quite frankly, at the press conference was, there were two stretches. There was from mid-November until Thatcher Demko made his season debut, and then there was again from the Four Nations when Demko was hurt and nobody knew for how long, but it turned out to be 6 weeks, where they just leaned on Kevin Lankinen and played him too much because there wasn't the trust factor there that you had a third stringer. Now, you never go into your season thinking, how much are we going to rely on a third stringer? But I think the Vancouver Canucks learned a pretty difficult lesson here where every point mattered in the standings, that they didn't have a viable third string guy that they could trust, and how quickly things changed from the Artie party and selling the Paisley pink shirts a year ago to, only being able to beat the Chicago Blackhawks. Those were his only 2 wins here. So if Tocchet's back, what's changed? If they run into injury problems at the NHL level, like, do they need another goaltender? We've talked about how many guys are under contract for next year. Like, the goaltending department is pretty crowded for the Vancouver Canucks, so I don't see them going outside the organization. But I just wonder if either Lankinen or Demko, and look, with Demko's history, it's quite plausible that there are going to be stretches where you need a third option. What's going to change? Is it
he's got to change. Artie's got to change. Artie's got to change Tocchet's mind. And that's the opportunity, I guess, that's in front of him here in the AHL playoffs.
But is winning a third game of a best of 3, is that enough, or would it take a lengthy playoff run here?
I think, more of that.
I think more of that.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, like, he's 24 years old. He has played 29 National Hockey League games. There's still runway ahead of Arturs Silovs here.
And it's goalies. Goalies develop a little later, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I asked the question, like, what would be different, I do wonder now that Tolopilo has played in the NHL, although his win came against San Jose. So, their wins from third stringers this year were 2 against Chicago and 1 against the San Jose Sharks. But I do wonder if next year, would they turn to Tolopilo sooner? Like, is it cut and dry that Silovs is the number 3 guy? And then there's the Jiri Patera factor in all of this, who, he got injured early in Abbotsford, but this is a guy they signed sort of to be that buffer. He had played 7 or 8 NHL games in the Vegas system. Had he been healthy, might he have been an option at the very least, just to give them a couple of games.
And he's got a year left, too. He's got a year left.
And of course, we dare to dream on Tai Young and Aku Koskinvo. So,
Yeah, it's just not quite yet on those guys.
yeah. Let's bookend this hit. Talked about Messi at the top. Referenced Jordan, Gretzky. Tiger never played here. Just did the research, Jeff. Jack Nicklaus played here. The 1966 Canadian Open at Shaughnessy, won by Don Massengill. Chichi Rodriguez was the runner-up. You cover that event?
I did not cover that one. It's my understanding that a young Tiger Woods did play around at Olympic View in Victoria at some point in his teenage years. So he's touched British Columbia. He's played some golf here. Obviously, those Skins games as well. Remember the Skins game?
Right.
Nicholas North and Predator Ridge. Like Phil Mickelson played Predator Ridge. I think it was Phil and Sergio Garcia, among others. So, yeah, we've had some notable names come through. But
and we talked about the first segment too. The OG soccer god.
Oh,
Pele.
Yeah,
was,
of
multiple
course.
times,
Of course,
multiple
during
times.
that era when all the big stars were in the NASL, right?
Yep.
Awesome stuff. Jeff will be watching and listening to RinkWide Vancouver Saturday after the Abbotsford game, and we'll catch up on Monday, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, Abby going the distance here, and of course the Vancouver Warriors on Saturday night. Again, what a weekend.
Big weekend.
Whitecaps, we got
here.
all this going on in the city. Sick Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center. Speaking of historic, we have a night to discuss here in a moment with our next guest.
We do indeed. And hopefully you got to that match in a BZ4X from your Pacific Toyota dealers, because that would have meant with all that traffic, you did a lot better, at least getting to the exits, because the highway exits, that is, because you're in the HOV lane. You're driving a 100% electric vehicle with that Toyota emblem on it, so you know it's good to go for years and years and years. And right now, you can get behind the wheel of this fabulous car with up to $6,500 in rebates. You can get 0.99% financing APR over 36 months. Folks, you have to go take one for a test drive. ShopToyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer.
We are joined now by a beaming Axel Schuster, Vancouver Whitecaps FC CEO and sporting director. So, how was your Thursday?
It was a good day in the office, I can tell you.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Good day at BC Place too, Axel.
Absolutely. No, I woke up yesterday early, and if you would have asked me to draft down how this day should go and what would be the perfect outcome, I don't think I would have drafted it that beautiful. So it was better than in all of my dreams, and now it is really important to get down on the earth, because there's a game on Sunday in MLS, and there's a second leg in Miami, and it's a different thing to play there. So we have to prepare for that, but we also have to take a little moment to enjoy what happened yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Axel did not drive into the office. He floated into the office this morning. Axel, what does a night like that mean for the club?
Yeah, I think it means so much for every person that is connected with the club. Is if you play for the club, if you coach the team, if you work for the club, or if you're just a fan, because we speak since many years that we want to build something here, that we want to not to be shy to say that we want to win something. And at the same time now, since December, we are speaking about that we want to make a case that this club means something to the city and that this club is important for the city. And have a night like yesterday is I think the statement of all of this, and mainly also for me because it was a blue and a white night. There are so many games that Messi plays away where you think like it was like a 30, 40, 50 pink night.
Right.
Yesterday it was a blue and white night. Everyone who came in blue and white. I know that a lot of people came to also see Messi, and that's all fair, but they showed their support for the club with the colors that they were wearing.
Are you surprised at the reception you got, being booed at every touch?
You know what? I in the first half I thought like I don't know if this is a good thing because we maybe get him even more engaged, and he wants to because he has that competitive gene. I think it was a statement of the people that he to say we didn't like what he did the last time, and I think it also shows how people, sport fans in Vancouver, go about things. And I thought it was a intelligent way to express the frustration from last year.
The talent you've assembled, Axel, continues to surprise, and I don't necessarily just mean about their ceiling, their talent level, which I think we have to say is still a little bit surprising. Like, I think we thought you guys were good. I didn't know that we knew you guys were great, but also their ability to play this many games. This has been a grind, and there has been no dip from your players without significant players in the lineup. I mean, you basically were down to just 11 guys that you felt comfortable with the last couple of MLS games, and you still made it work. The fact that they continue to dig deep, I mean, you must be just floored. And like, how pleased are you? And again, I don't know that you need to feel guilty if you do say you're surprised, because you can think your guys are good and then be surprised that they're great. I think that would be allowed. But where are you when you look at these guys and how they've dug deep here in the last month, especially?
Yeah, I always try to say this week that we are not genius. We haven't seen all of this coming. That our general approach is to go for talent and to help them to develop themselves here, to become better players, and then helping us to be a better team. That this is our approach, to make the team better by making players better. That's what we always say. With that, we bring in players where we believe that they can do the next step. I always say to players, this is the expectations we have for you. This should be the expectation that you have for you, but there's nothing wrong with overperforming. And what they do right now is overperforming to the expectation that we had for them at this point in their career in our club. They're a step ahead. This is great for us, and it's great for them. It was really needed also. The team again and again surprises me. Somebody asked me, are you planning to have new signings? And we were looking into this to give the team a little bit more depth. But at the end of the day, if somebody really wants to know what our new signings are for the future, these are Ryan Gold, Sema de Kube, Matthias Laborda, and Jaden Nelson, because they haven't been there for this whole run, and they will come back soon. And this will be additional players that all want to play. And you can only play 11 players, so it's a tough fight already for the 11 spots in our team now.
And for those who don't know, it is 8 wins, 6 draws, 14 results out of 16 matches across all competitions this year, leading the MLS West by more than a full victory of 3 points heading into Minnesota on Sunday. More on that in a second. Arturs Schuster, but I saw a lot of people saying, okay, of the 53,000 plus who were in attendance last night, now the key is to get some of them back more frequently for non-Messi matches in MLS.
Your players even saying that.
Yeah. How do you do that, and how much do you think this will help attendance here going forward, Axel?
Yeah, everyone who came yesterday showed up in blue and white and is a Whitecaps supporter, has attended games before, is following us. And yesterday he showed up, she showed up, they showed up as a family. I don't think they should give me one reason for not coming back.
Good answer.
I have to say, we couldn't showcase ourselves better than yesterday. We couldn't deliver a better argument to come back than yesterday. And now it is about them to show their support and coming and helping us in the next MLS game that we play at home, and make it not all. It is already a very good season, to make it even a better season, because this support really matters for the team, and we wouldn't have had that performance yesterday with not having that support from those stands.
One little bit of news to ask you about. You're not going to get out of here scot-free before we put some screws to you here.
I want to ask some more about the game, though.
Do you? Okay, we'll get back to it. But you mentioned players coming in. You know, we've got the injured players, and that's fair. Presuming you don't lose players, Vite had another transcendent performance. Andres Kubas, amazing. 2 guys that, and granted, a lot of it is tabloid rumor from South American newspapers, to which we don't necessarily need to give a ton of credit to, but it's out there. Are you confident that Andres and Pedro are Whitecaps through the season?
First of all, something about rumors. I like rumors because rumors only happen if your players are doing well and if there's interest, or some people believe that there could be interest if the rumors isn't even true. So it also comes with the performance that those players show right now, week in, week out. Both players, I always say we speak with those players more than everyone else, and we are having a very good exchange. And both players with their national teams are on a very good path to qualify for the World Cup. And both players want to play and start in the World Cup. And we are the platform that help them to do this and to get there. And there is also a very good argument to stay here in Vancouver throughout the season till the World Cup, at least, because there's always a risk with moving. You can go to another club, a new coach, you don't
point.
play there right away, and you can lose your spot in the national team. So I'm optimistic that we will find a good solution with them. But this business obviously is unpredictable. But everything that came up yet doesn't change my optimism because most of these rumors are not true. And I also know what the players are really looking for.
Well, and Kubas got under Messi's skin last night, got a talking to on the pitch there. I mean, I'm sure that's a story he will tell kids and grandkids. Axel, I'm interested. What were your players and coaches saying in the aftermath about beating Lionel Messi?
You know, I have to say, one of the very interesting things for me after the match was that how focused our players still were, because they all know there's a second leg to come and the job is not done. And I think they didn't want to allow themselves to be too excited. But we had some nice interactions with them. So if you mentioned Kubas, I said to him, why he was so mad at you, and he said he always gets mad at me. And you have to know Kubas played Messi several times in South America with his national team. You also have to know that Kubas has an Argentinian passport as well. So, and I said to Kubas that I don't understand that how somebody can get mad at him because he's such a nice guy, and that's actually true off the pitch. And we all know what kind of asset Kubas is on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he is a piece of why we have this belief and had this belief going in this game that we can do something against them, because you also need somebody who can stop Messi as much as you can stop him. And Paraguay recently won against Argentina, and Kubas did it there. So it was building confidence by all those little things that are happening over the last year.
Take us through how you watched the game, who you watched the game with. What were your emotions as all this was going down, Axel?
Yeah, it's better not to have too many people around me because I'm very active watching the game. So I was telling a few people that I felt like Sepp Berhalter when Brian White scored the first goal. Sepp Berhalter was jumping next to him and doing the header with him together. I was watching the game together with Steve Nash and his family, and Steve Nash is a passionate soccer guy, and he is very educated about the game, and he was almost sitting there like a coach and thinking about tactical variances, while I was actually literally playing the game with all my players and doing every action with them. I felt totally exhausted after the game, although I don't want to compare my physical input yesterday with what the players did.
Hey, a few more injuries. You're playing left back in Minnesota on Sunday. That's amazing.
I do feel bad for Ryan Gauld.
Better not.
I feel bad for Ryan Gauld because, I mean, God, he got labeled Scottish Messi for a long, long time. But just, the two players do behave similarly on the pitch. It would have been great to see Ryan go toe-to-toe with him. I think the answer is you still don't know, but tell me, like, what are we talking? Still 2 more weeks away, do you think, for Ryan?
Yeah, we cannot risk anything. So, and yesterday in halftime he came to my box, and we had a few guests there, and he's such a humbled working class DP for us. And they said, "Oh, we need you back," and he said, "No, they don't need me. Look at them, they don't need me." So That's what he is, and what our team also is. And this team is not only has not only a good connection on the pitch, they also have a good connection off the pitch. We spend a lot of time together. We travel a lot, and now we go another 5-day trip, Minnesota, and from there straight to Fort Lauderdale. So, and he's an important part of this group. We cannot risk him. We cannot have a re-injury. Is it 2 weeks? Yeah. If it is 10 days, even better. If it is 2 more days than 2 weeks, and he is fully ready to go, and we have the Ryan Gold back that has been the driver of our success for the last years, then we are all happy.
Well, it's been a remarkable, improbable. Axel, I got paired up on the golf course Wednesday with one of your season ticket holders. They have 4 seats. He was just overjoyed about your team and being able to go to the games and see such a beautiful version of soccer being played, and of course results to follow. It's been a remarkable season. We wish you all the best in Minnesota and Miami. Thank you for the time, sir, and congratulations again on an all-time
Thank you so much.
evening
Yes.
for Vancouver.
Thank you so much.
Whitecaps.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center, where if you have your tickets to the big game, why not make it the full experience? Stay downtown at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Harrison Price rate. Some blackout date supply based on availability.
You know, everybody wants to win a trade. I got a trade you can win. Trade in your 4, like 4 for woo! Because that's what the trade will be the next time you hook one into the woods.
Quite happy with 4s.
Because that means you'll be into the bogey juice. And we've done a lot of talking about the concept of bogey juice and how great an idea it is that instead of celebrating the birdies that we never get to celebrate, why not celebrate the bogeys? But we should talk about how great it tastes. Crisp apple flavor, kick and ginger, great little zing. It's a palate refresher when you're out there on the course. Need to start anew, maybe every hole. And made smoother with that top shelf vodka. Go check it out at bogeyjuice.com. Use the code SP15. Get your 15% off. Bogey Juice comes in individual servings for shots, or you can turn it into a cocktail with the bottle and throw in a little soda. It's fabulous. Bogeyjuice.com.
I'm just visualizing here. 4 on every hole, 18 fours, 72. I like that.
You're still getting bogey juice there.
And I still get 4 shots of bogey juice there because I'm
par
bogeying
threes.
all the par 3s.
Yeah. It's a win-win.
That is what I aspire to this summer. If I can have
18
that
fours?
day. Seahawks. They go chalk in the first round of the NFL draft.
Shocking.
So many people had North Dakota State offensive lineman Gray Zabel mocked to them at 18, and sure enough, that's the guy they chose. He's an offensive tackle in college. He's going to play inside in the NFL, either guard or center. He's going to fill Seattle's biggest need. Ian Rappaport was reporting there was a big willingness to trade down there from Seattle.
Not a surprise.
But there were just very few trades, period. The big one, Cleveland and
that's
Jackson.
with Pete Carroll back in the league.
I know. There weren't roster players. Jacksonville went from 5 to 2 to get the Heisman Trophy winner, the two-way star Travis Hunter. Cleveland traded down there. You had the Giants move back into the first round from their early second-round selection with Houston to take quarterback Jackson Dart. Atlanta did the same with the Rams for edge rusher James Pierce. And then there was an itty-bitty trade at the end where Kansas City and Philadelphia flipped 31 and 32. Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' kid, not selected in the first round. He built his own room for the draft.
That's one does.
And his hip-hop group, Legendary, it was branded Legendary after his group. And then they sat there for 4 hours, and he was not selected.
Painful.
We are expecting Canadian wide receiver Elick Iomanner to be selected today, somewhere in round 2 or round 3. He's a big wide receiver from Stanford University. And then on the weekend, you're looking at the quarterbacks. Curtis Rourke, brother of Nathan, Indiana University. He's coming off a knee injury, so the medicals are important there. And then Taylor Elgersma is going to see if he can pull the rare U Sport to NFL selection of Giovanni Manu last year. The UBC offensive lineman went, but rarely do quarterbacks make that jump.
Yeah,
Anyways,
absolutely.
be a hell of a party at Wilfrid Laurier University if he does get
But on Zabel,
selected.
most people seem pretty
It's biggest
content with it.
biggest need. There's position versatility there. Usually, when you do that, you're going to get a lot of plaudits. The criticism, if you wanted to take a harsh eye, is you took a small school, non-premium position guy at number 18.
Yep.
It's typically a little high for guards. It's typically a little high for small school guys, but
But he's a specimen.
yeah. No, he is. He
tested really well,
He's
so-
an exceptional athlete. He's the type of guy that if big time schools knew what he was going to be like at 22, they would have been recruiting him at 18.
And some might scoff, as Matt says, a hell of an athlete as an offensive guard. He's 6'6", 312 with a 9'3" broad jump.
Mm-hmm.
You try to do a 9'3" broad jump at your weight and see what happens. Imagine that size of a guy doing it. Like, that is tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Typically, the broader you are, the less jump you have.
Yeah, typically.
Breadth. Speak from a place of experience with breadth. Okay, Vancouver Canadians. They lose another walk-off in Everett. That's 2 this week. Seattle Mariners, number 7 prospect, Michael Arroyo, goes deep in the bottom of the 9th. That's that, 4-3. Everett wins. Seas return home Tuesday. They got a 6-game homestand against Hillsborough. You got a Friday nooner, and you've got a Sunday, May the 4th, Star Wars theme. I can only imagine how adorable it's going to be in the stands at the Nat a week from Sunday with all those kids dressed up as Jedis or Darth Vader,
Jar Jar
or
Binks.
Wookiees.
Nobody does that.
Perhaps some Princess Leia hair buns going on.
Misa want to see the seas. That was my Jar Jar Binks.
Mike, you want to clip that? we will have all sorts of use for that. Tickets, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. An incredible comeback in the NBA playoffs last night for Canadian Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP frontrunner, and his OKC Thunder. They take a 3-0 stranglehold lead on the series against Memphis. They're down 29, and they come back to win the ball game. It is the second biggest comeback in the history of the NBA playoffs since data tracking started in 96-97. It comes with a fair bit of
controversy, yes.
Ja Morant, the Grizzly star, is undercut by Canadian defensive sensation Lou Dort. He leaves the game with a hip injury late in the second quarter. His Grizzlies were up 26 at the time. They did not hang on.
The fine print of this is, and you can go do the investigation yourself, Dort slips. It was not like a lot of people are calling it a dirty play. No, he clearly, the left foot clearly slips as he's trying to pivot.
They made amends after the play. It was no hard feelings. Okay.
At least in the moment. 3, Shade, Lou Dort, and Williams all went over and sort of said their piece to him and gave him a fist bump as he ended up taking the 2 free throws for the foul and then left the game. But as people pointed out, this is now like the 3rd critical injury, critical timing and maybe critical injury too, that Ja Morant has suffered at critical times for them. And he's only 25. Like, can the guy just not stay healthy? Now, again, this was, what do you do? This is not him pivoting.
There's also the matter of can you stay eligible and not get
behavioral
suspended?
problems as well.
Yeah.
He remains unavailable when they need him most, is the point. Yeah.
You know who's playing great? Kawhi Leonard, man.
Yeah.
Kawhi is having another chapter here in their series against
He's
Denver.
still a Clipper, right?
They're up 2-1. Yeah, still a Clipper. Okay. Well, we've been talking about this story for several weeks and talking about the big game tomorrow all week. Vancouver Warriors are back in the NLL playoffs for the first time in 8 years. They take a 6-game winning streak? 6-game winning streak into this contest with the Rochester Nighthawks. This is Saturday at Rogers Arena. It is a single elimination game in the NLL quarterfinals. And here to talk about that is our intern, Jaden Teja, who's been with us the last couple of weeks, and you work for the Warriors.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Must be pretty exciting these days in the Warriors' offices.
I mean, yeah, it is. I mean, 6 in a row. The Del Bianco trade really changed this whole team around, and it's been a lot of fun. Like, who wouldn't love working for a winning team right now?
Yeah.
We talked about the Whitecap buzz in BC Place. What's the buzz been like in the arena with the Warriors building and like right from the moment that Del Bianco arrives? There's a different buzz in the building, isn't there?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the press conference when they traded for him, Mawalski called it franchise changing, and it really has been. Like, this guy's like the best. Like, I can compare him to, in the hockey terms, like a Hellebuck or Igor Shesterkin. He changed that whole team around.
Yeah.
And the play proved it. Like, not that Aiden Walsh is playing bad, Walsh is playing good, but Del Bianco's a different type of cat back there, and he gives that team a whole new confidence between the pipes, and they just carried it and ran with it. Here they are, finished, I believe, with the 4 seed and the first home playoff game.
Yeah.
And they're playing really, really well.
Yeah. Break down the game for us. Give us a preview. What does Rochester bring, and what is Vancouver's route to victory here?
I mean, Vancouver beat them in their home opener, but I think you can't really judge the two teams, like completely different teams since that game. And obviously with Del Bianco and Rochester playing hot too, I think Vancouver's their strength all year has been their defense and goaltending. But I think now, like, the offense trying to pick it up a little bit. Keegan Ball had his back-to-back 100-point seasons, first in Warriors history, I believe. And I think the key to victory is just going to be limiting Rochester, just not letting him go on runs. Mawalski preaches this a lot. Just can't let Rochester go on runs. And if Vancouver holds him, Del Bianco's going to do his thing back there. But if he can build a nice lead for him, Vancouver would be just fine.
Yeah, that has been the method here of late. They jump out on leads and then they defend them because they have the best defense or the best goaltender.
Have you heard a ticket?
What are you expecting there?
The last game was the second highest in attendance ever to open Upper Bowl for the first time. Hopefully, I mean, we remember how rocking the playoffs were at Rogers Arena last year with the Canucks, and if we can even just get to like half of that, I think it'll be great. I'm hoping they break the 10,000 mark, but I'm expecting a really good turnout, and hopefully, I don't know what they're gonna have going down there. Hopefully, some like playoff towels, but I know the vibes of the lacrosse games are always really good.
They are.
I hope hopefully the fans bring the juice for the playoff game.
The only downside of this late surge is any fans that thought they weren't playoff team early in the season now have to double back and remember to buy playoff tickets. So sometimes, and you don't have the game scheduled till the last second, so you've got to buy tickets late.
What I will say is there has been no ignoring, though, the storm of Bruin. This story has been coming for the last month to 6 weeks. It is the Warriors and the Nighthawks at Rogers Arena on Saturday in a single elimination. Winner moves on to the semifinals, the NLL playoffs. This team is worth your attention. As Jaden mentions, had the second largest crowd in their history for the home finale. They play a fun and exciting brand of lacrosse. I watched a couple of games on television from Rogers Arena on TSN with our buddies Teddy Jenner and Brad Challoner. It's a heck of a good time. So best of luck to the Warriors. And Jaden, thanks for Mike treating you okay in there?
Yeah.
It's not every day you get to work with a 4-time Juno Award winner. So it's been a blast. I'm excited.
And a world log rolling champion at that. Thanks, Jaden.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
Poll question results. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results asking you, is bringing back Elias Patterson and Thatcher Demko a better idea than trading both? What did the people say, Blake?
People said yes.
Indeed. Percentage?
58.
64. SK, Thatcher Demko is likely going to be the best trade chip to land a second-line center. The only issue is they may have to trade him in division. If Skinner keeps letting 6 in a night. Demko for Ryan Nugent-Hopkins?
That was mine. That was my suggestion a couple weeks ago. I mean, Nuge has got the full no move, so he can guide that. But
he would want to have to come home here.
Yeah.
Where's your koozie? I feel like they both will come back ready to go from day one. I still have faith in both players. Lanky and Demko are going 50-50 is ideal. I would assume we would have a few more wins with a somewhat healthy Demko, just saying. Canucks 2030 with Demko, it's more a matter of when to trade him. His value might be lowest now. If he starts the season hot, definitely trade him before the deadline unless he is willing to do a short-term deal for similar money. Time now for Errors and Omissions. It is brought to you by our friends at Ben Moss, a Canadian firm, proudly with a history dating back more than a century, 5 locations here in British Columbia, Coquitlam Center, and Willowbrook and Langley. Among them, committed to customer satisfaction. They have a large selection of Canadian mined diamonds. They got lab-grown diamonds. Check out the mined diamonds with payment plans to suit your needs. More information, benmoss.com. Ben Moss, shine bright. Mike, I'm bracing for this one. Okay. Blake said Elias Patterson had 8 point-per-game seasons.
No, I didn't. I did not. No, I said he was a point-per-game player after the first 6 seasons of his career. Meaning he had played X number of games with X number of points.
He has 2 point-per-game seasons.
That's not what I said, though. You're
I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
66 and 71 falls short. 66 and 68 falls just short. 21 and 26, again, just short. 68 and 80. Then the 2 point per game seasons, 102 and 89. And then 45 and 64 this year. Yes, 457 and 471. Nearly a point per game player over his career.
This season, he was 19 points off of point per game with 45 and 64. For his career, he is 14 points off a point per game. So by extension, if you take away this year, he was above a point per game for his career.
He was a point per game player for his career with 2 point per game seasons. Yes. Okay. Glad we got that sorted. Anything else? Anything from
Simply, too.
On a Friday.
Yeah. Which is rare.
Yeah.
Usually that's where the gloves come
Friday is
off.
usually fight day. I don't have to fucking see him for 2 days. Great.
Exactly.
Let's have a go.
2 days of healing.
Yeah, exactly. Peace, tranquility, space.
Yeah.
Healing. Nothing?
Nope.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. And keep it local. And good luck, Jaden.
Thank you so much.
And to the Warriors.